I knew the day was going to go south when I saw Derek trying to use the espresso machine in the break room. The man looked like he was trying to defuse a bomb, but with less intelligence and more hair gel. I'm Alina, by the way, lead cryptographer for a defense firm that I can't name without burying this post under 14 layers of redaction tape. I build the digital vaults that keep the uncomfortable truths of national security from leaking onto your Twitter feed. I don't deal in maybes, I deal in 256-bit keys and silence. I was leaning against the counter, watching Derek struggle with a pod that was clearly labeled decaf while he muttered about optimizing caffeine throughput. This is the guy corporate sent down to streamline operations. In my line of work, streamline usually means fire the people who know how the engine works and replace them with yes men who think Python is just a snake. He finally got his brown sludge, turned to me, and gave that tight-lipped, dead-eyed nod that middle managers practice in the mirror. Alina, he said. It sounded less like a greeting and more like he was acknowledging a smudge on his loafers. Derek, I replied, keeping my voice flat. I have a clearance level that would make his head spin off his neck. But to him, I'm just the legacy hire who doesn't laugh at his agile methodology jokes. Before I get into how this sentient LinkedIn profile tried to ruin my life, do me a favor, hit subscribe and upvote this mess. It fuels my rage fire, and honestly, seeing the numbers go up is the only dopamine hit I get since I quit drinking coffee to avoid Derek in the mornings. Thanks. You guys are the real MVPs. I walk back to my office, the war room, we call it. It's a windowless box kept at exactly 68 degrees, filled with enough computing power to simulate the universe or mine Bitcoin until the sun burns out. I sat down at my terminal. I was finishing the final encryption layer for a cross-federal pipeline. This wasn't standard corporate code. This was the digital equivalent of pouring concrete over a nuclear reactor. It had to be perfect. One misplaced semicolon, one weak handshake protocol, and half the Eastern Seaboard's grid logic could be compromised. I typed. My fingers move differently when I'm in the zone. It's not typing, it's weaving. I was stitching a safety net out of mathematics. The cursor blinked, a steady heartbeat in the dark. Tap, tap, enter, done. The compile bar filled up, green and soothing. I felt that specific satisfaction you get when chaos is ordered into submission. I locked the station. My protocol is rigid. Lock, token out, verify, leave. I never skip a step. I grabbed my bag and headed for the secure exit to grab a late lunch. The hallway was quiet, the kind of sterile silence that usually costs billions of dollars to maintain. I reached the heavy maglock doors that separate the SIF, sensitive compartmented information facility, from the lobby. I tapped my badge, beep boop, a red light. That was odd. I wiped the card on my sleeve, a universal gesture of futility, and tapped again. Beep boop, red light, access denied. My stomach did a slow roll like a destroyer changing course in heavy seas. These badges don't just fail, they are hard-coded with RFID chips tracked by satellites. A failure isn't a glitch, it's a statement. I looked up at the camera in the corner. Usually, security would buzz me out in 3 seconds, assuming a reader error. 10 seconds passed. Nothing, I had to manually push the intercom. Security, this is Alina. Badge reader on Sector 4 is acting up. One moment, a voice crackled. It wasn't Old Man Miller, the usual guy. It sounded young. Nervous. Hold on. System says, sync issue, I'll buzz you. Click, the door unlatched. I walked through, my internal radar pinging like crazy. A sync issue. Closed loop system? That's like saying a submarine has a sunroof leak. It's technically impossible unless someone took a blowtorch to the hull. I went to the cafeteria, grabbed a sandwich that tasted like cardboard and sadness, and ate it while staring at the wall. My mind was racing. Derek had been hovering around the IT admin desk yesterday. I had seen him whispering with the sys admin, a guy whose password security habits I've personally flagged 3 times this quarter. I went back up. The badge worked on the main lobby turnstile, but it lagged. A fraction of a second delay. To you, that's nothing. To me, that's a packet being routed somewhere else before getting approval. Someone was sniffing the traffic on my own credentials. I got back to the war room. The door was locked just as I left it. I swiped in. I sat down and woke the monitor, and there it was. A terminal window I hadn't opened. It was minimized in the corner, barely visible against my dark background wallpaper. I didn't touch the mouse. I didn't gasp. I froze, becoming part of the furniture. Someone had accessed the terminal in the 20 minutes I was eating my sad sandwich. They hadn't changed anything obvious. The code was still compiling. But the access logs? I pulled them up using a keyboard shortcut that bypasses the GUI, a little trick I wrote for myself years ago. User, Alina admin time, 12:14 p.m. command. Export all /dev/null. They hadn't just looked. They had tried to copy the root directory. But they were sloppy. The syntax was wrong. They tried to pipe it to a null device, probably thinking that meant hidden folder, when in reality they just sent the data into a digital black hole. It was amateur hour. It was offensive. It was definitely Derek. Or someone Derek hired who learned hacking from watching Mr. Robot clips on YouTube at half speed. I carefully closed the window. I didn't delete the history. I didn't alert security. If they were coming for me, they were already inside the house. I needed insurance. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my lip balm, except it wasn't lip balm. It was a masked USB drive, specifically designed to look like a generic tube of chapstick. I plugged it into the back of the tower, into the maintenance port that isn't monitored by the standard DLP, data loss prevention software, because I'm the one who wrote the DLP software exceptions. I initiated a silent mirror of the server logs. Every keystroke, every failed login, every unauthorized access attempt from the last 24 hours. You want to play games, Derek? I whispered to the humming server rack. Let's play. The download finished. I pocketed the chapstick. I smoothed my blazer, fixed my posture, and went back to work as if nothing happened. But the air in the room had changed. It didn't smell like ozone and recycled air anymore. It smelled like a trap. The summons came at 9 a.m. sharp the next morning. An Outlook calendar invite titled Status Update with high importance. No agenda attached. Just me, Derek, and the HR director. A woman named Janice who always smelled like lavender and anxiety. I walked into the HR conference room. You know the type. Glass walls that aren't quite soundproof enough, a table made of fake mahogany that wobbles if you breathe on it, and a motivational poster on the wall that says teamwork featuring a row of ants carrying a leaf. I always wondered if the ants knew they were just labor for a queen who didn't care if they got stepped on. Derek was already sitting there. He wasn't wearing a tie, just one of those quarter-zip fleeces that scream I vacation in Martha's Vineyard, but I want to look approachable. He had a folder in front of him. He tapped it with his index finger. Tap, tap, tap. Janice wouldn't meet my eyes. She was aggressively organizing a stack of papers that didn't need organizing. Alina, have a seat, Derek said. He tried to sound grave, but the corners of his mouth were twitching. He was enjoying this. He was practically vibrating with the thrill of power. I sat. I didn't lean back, spine straight, hands folded in my lap. Is there a problem with the encryption rollout? I saw the compile finished successfully. This isn't about the code, Alina, Derek said, opening the folder. He slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was a printout, standard company letterhead, no Department of Defense seal. No NSA watermark. No timestamps from the Central Clearance Database. Just Arial font, size 12, double-spaced lies. We received a flag during the quarterly security audit, Derek said, his voice dropping an octave to sound authoritative. Your top secret/PSI clearance has been flagged as expired, pending review. Effective immediately, we have to terminate your access to all classified systems. I looked at the paper. It said, subject, clearance revocation. Reason, administrative lapse. I almost laughed. I really did. It took every ounce of my discipline not to cackle like a witch over a cauldron. Clearances like mine don't expire because of an administrative lapse. They are life-monitored. If my clearance was actually revoked, I wouldn't be sitting in a conference room with Derek and Lavender Janice. I would be in a windowless room in D.C. explaining myself to 3 guys who don't blink. Expired, I repeated. Voice dead calm. That's interesting, Derek. My reinvestigation date isn't until 2027. And usually the adjudication facility notifies the subject directly via secure mail before notifying the contractor. Derek waved his hand dismissively. The bureaucracy is messy, Alina. You know that. The point is, without the clearance, you can't be in the building. You can't touch the terminals. You're a liability. Janice finally spoke up, her voice trembling. We have prepared a severance package, standard 2 weeks plus COBRA. If you sign the NDA regarding your departure today, I'm not signing anything, I said. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Derek stopped tapping his finger. Excuse me, I'm not signing a voluntary separation agreement, I clarified. If you are firing me, fire me. Put it in the system. Terminated due to clearance failure. Do it. Derek smiled. It was a shark's smile. All teeth and dead eyes. Fine, have it your way. Hand over your badge and your token. I reached into my bag. I pulled out my badge, the hard plastic rectangle that had been my identity for 12 years. I placed it on the table. Next to it, I placed my RSA token, the little fob with the changing numbers. And the keys, Derek said. What keys? The encryption keys, the master passcodes for the vault. I stared at him. This was it. This was the whole play. He wanted the keys. He wanted to hand them to someone else and claim he streamlined the department. The keys aren't physical, Derek, I said slowly, as if explaining quantum physics to a golden retriever. They are algorithmic seeds. They rotate every 6 hours. I can't just give them to you. The system generates them based on my biometric profile. We'll figure it out, he snapped. Just go. Security will escort you out. I stood up. I didn't look at Janice. I looked Derek dead in the eye. You really have no idea what you're doing, do you? You think this is just IT support. You think you can just swap out parts. I think your time has passed, Alina, he sneered. We need fresh eyes. Loyal, there it was. He didn't want competence, he wanted a lapdog. I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't slam the door. I walked past the security desk where Old Man Miller looked confused as he took my visitor log signature. Leaving early, Alina? He asked. Something like that, Miller. Take care of yourself. I walked out into the Maryland humidity. The sun was blinding. My car was baking in the asphalt lot. I got in, locked the doors, and sat there for a full minute. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline dump of holding back a scream. He lied about a federal clearance. That's not just a firing offense, that's a felony. That's go to federal prison and make license plates territory if the wrong people find out. And I was going to make sure the very wrong people found out. I didn't drive home. Home is where you go to lick your wounds. I drove toward Fort Meade. Well, not into the fort. My badge was gone, after all, but to a nondescript office park about 5 miles away. Place with no sign, just a number on the door. It's a listening post, a secure drop site for personnel who need to report a compromised chain of command without using digital channels. I parked my sedan between a black Tahoe and a gray F-150. I took a deep breath, grabbed my chapstick drive, and walked toward the building. Derek thought he had locked me out. He didn't realize that by cutting my cord, he just turned me into a loose live wire, and he was standing in a puddle. It took less than 24 hours for Derek to unveil his master plan. I wasn't in the office, obviously. I was sitting in my home office, a room that is significantly more secure than most bank vaults, watching the train wreck unfold on a dedicated monitor. See, here's the thing about being the architect of a system. You always leave a back door, not a malicious one, a maintenance hatch. Break in case of emergency loop that bypasses the standard authentication servers and connects directly to the kernel via a hard-coded IP handshake. It's undetectable unless you know exactly which packet sequence to look for in the noise floor. Derek didn't even know what a noise floor was. I had access to the internal security cameras. Illegal? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. Derek had called an all-hands meeting in the war room. He was standing at the front, beaming like he just invented the internet. Next to him was a guy who looked like he was engineered in a lab to be the ultimate tech bro. He was wearing skinny jeans, a hoodie that cost more than my car, and had that meticulously messy hair that takes 40 minutes to style. "Team," Derek announced, his voice tinny through the microphone. "I want you to meet the future of our encryption division. This is Ethan. He's joining us from Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is code for fired from a startup for losing user data." Ethan threw up a peace sign. "Sup, guys, ready to crush some code? We're gonna modernize this stack. No more legacy bloatware, right?" Legacy bloatware. He was talking about the polymorphic encryption engine I spent 4 years perfecting, the one that adapts to quantum decryption attempts in real time. He called it bloatware. I watched as my team, sat there in stunned silence. Sarah, a senior analyst, raised her hand. "Ethan, welcome. Does this mean you're taking over the key management protocols? Because the rotation is set for 1800 hours. Ethan laughed. It was a hollow, nervous sound. "Key rotation? Yeah, we'll automate that. I've got a script I wrote in Node.js that handles dynamic rekeying. It's super lightweight." I groaned aloud in my empty house. Node.js, for a military-grade localized vault. That's like trying to secure a bank vault with a piece of Scotch tape. Later that afternoon, the camera feed showed Ethan sitting at my desk. My desk. He had put his feet up on the console. He was typing on a mechanical keyboard he must have brought from home, clicky, loud, obnoxious switches. I switched my view to the terminal mirror. I could see what he was typing. Command, sudo apt-get update error, repository not found. Command, git clone public repository URL error, firewall blocking external connection. He was trying to pull code from the public internet into a closed CIF environment. He was literally trying to copy-paste code from GitHub to run a classified defense system. "You absolute turnip," I whispered. Derek walked in a few minutes later, holding 2 coffees. "How's it going, Rockstar? You getting into the guts of it?" "Yeah, man," Ethan said, spinning around in my chair. "The previous admin, Alina, right? She had this locked down way too tight. Permissions are a nightmare. I'm having to root the box just to install some basic tools." "Do what you gotta do," Derek said, sipping his latte. "Just get it ready for the demo on Friday." I told the board we'd have the new interface live. "No worries. I'm flushing the old checksums now." My blood ran cold. The checksums aren't just for error checking. In this system, they are the heartbeat. They verify the integrity of the data stored in the vault. If you flush them without the proper rehashing sequence, which only exists in my head and on a secure offline drive, the system interprets the data as corrupted. If he ran that command, he wouldn't just break the system. He would trigger the dead man's switch. The system is designed to assume that if the checksums vanish suddenly, the facility has been overrun by hostiles. It locks down. It encrypts the data into a monolithic block of noise that is mathematically impossible to reverse without the prime key. And guess who has the prime key? I watched Ethan type rmrf/var/log/checksums. He hesitated. His finger hovered over the enter key. "Do it," Derek urged. "Clean slate." Ethan hit enter. On my screen, nothing happened. On their screen, the prompt just returned to a blinking cursor. "Done," Ethan said. "Easy." They had no idea. They didn't hear the silent alarm that just went out to the NSA, the DoD, and 3 other agencies that don't have acronyms. They didn't see the background processes quietly locking every single file, turning terabytes of intelligence into digital concrete. They thought they were cleaning house. In reality, they had just welded the doors shut from the inside. I sat back in my chair and took a sip of my tea. It was Earl Grey hot. "Okay, Ethan," I said to the screen. "You wanted the wheel? You got it. Try not to crash into the Pentagon." The trap was sprung. Now, I just had to wait for the hunters to arrive. The thing about a silent alarm is that it's really, truly silent. There are no flashing red lights, no sirens, no robotic voice counting down to self-destruct. That's Hollywood bullshit. In the real world, a silent alarm is a single packet of data, 64 bytes long, sent via a subfrequency that bypasses the company's ISP entirely. It hit the Pentagon's servers at 2:14 p.m. At 2:15 p.m., my encrypted phone buzzed. It wasn't a text, it was a push notification from an app that looks like a weather tracker but isn't. Storm warning, severe, location, Sector 7. Sector 7 is the code for my old office. I opened the app and authorized with my thumbprint. A chat window appeared. User ID was just a string of random numbers. Handler, we see integrity collapse on Vault Node 4. Did you authorize a flush? I typed back instantly. Alina, negative. I was terminated yesterday. Badge revoked. Access denied by site manager Derek V. 3 dots appeared. They pulsed for a long time. I could imagine the chaos happening in a windowless room in Arlington. Analysts pulling up logs, realizing the lead cryptographer was gone, realizing some kid named Ethan was currently rewriting the security protocols with crayons. Handler, terminated? We have no record of a clearance withdrawal. You are still the registered Prime admin. Alina, Derek claims my clearance expired. He physically removed me. The current activity is unauthorized. Handler, understood. Hold position. Do not attempt to log in remotely. Do not contact the site. We are initiating a trace. Do not engage. Hardest order to follow. I was watching Ethan on my other monitor. He was currently frowning at his screen. Hey Derek, Ethan called out. Weird thing. The file system is acting kinda slow. I tried to open the user database and it's giving me gibberish. Derek poked his head in. It's probably just indexing. Give it a minute. No, look, Ethan pointed. The file names. They're all changing to random characters. Is that normal? It was the encryption cascade. The system was eating itself to protect the data. It was beautiful. Back on my phone, a new message popped up. Handler, trace confirms unauthorized IP access. User Ethan admin utilizing unsecured script injection. This is a Category 1 breach. We are freezing federal contracts effective immediately. I felt a grim satisfaction. A Category 1 breach isn't a slap on the wrist. It's the call the lawyers and the priests level of screwed. It means the company has failed to protect national secrets. It means their authorization to handle classified data is suspended until a full forensic audit is completed. And audits take months. I watched as Derek's phone started to ring. He ignored it. It rang again. He looked annoyed. Who keeps calling me? He muttered, checking the screen. Washington area code, probably telemarketers. He declined the call. He declined a call from the Department of Defense. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my tea. Ethan, Derek said, just force a reboot. That usually clears the cache on it. Ethan reached for the power button on the main server rack. My heart stopped. A hard reboot during an active encryption cascade that guarantees data corruption. He wasn't just locking the door, he was setting the house on fire. No, you idiot, I hissed at the screen. Ethan pressed the button. The screens in the war room went black. There, Ethan said. Let it rest for a sec. It'll come back up fresh. On my phone, handler, signal lost. Node 4 is offline. Did they just hard kill the server? Alina, affirmative. Manager instructed a hard reboot during lockdown protocol. Handler, Jesus Christ. Okay. Asset preservation team is mobilizing. Stay by your phone. Asset preservation team. That's polite speak for men with guns and subpoenas. I leaned back. The damage was done. Data was likely corrupted beyond repair. Unless, of course, someone had a backup. A localized, offline mirror of the entire vault structure. Someone who was paranoid enough to keep a copy on a secured drive disguised as chapstick. Derek had just destroyed millions of dollars of work and compromised national security because he wanted to hire his buddy. And he had no idea that the only lifeboat in the ocean of excrement he just created was sitting in my pocket. I checked the time, 3:30 p.m. The traffic from DC to Maryland is brutal this time of day. The asset preservation team wouldn't arrive until tomorrow morning. That gave Derek and Ethan one final night to stew in their own failure. One night to realize that the system wasn't coming back up. One night to realize that expired clearance was a lie that was about to strangle them. I decided to order a pizza. Extra pepperoni. I deserved a treat. You have to admire the sheer, unadulterated hubris of a middle manager. Even as the server rack sat dark and silent, cooling down from its digital suicide, Derek decided it was time to celebrate. Around 4:30 p.m., the office admins rolled a cart into the main open-plan area outside the war room. Plastic flutes, a bucket of ice, and 3 bottles of mid-range sparkling wine. New era, fresh talent, a printed banner read was taped crookedly to the whiteboard. I watched through the breakroom security camera. The staff looked uneasy. They knew I was gone. They knew the badge readers were acting up. They knew the system maintenance was taking too long, but free booze is free booze, so they gathered round. Derek tapped a spoon against a glass. Ting, ting, ting. Everyone gather round, he boomed. He had his arm around Ethan's shoulders. Ethan looked less confident now. He kept glancing back at the dark war room door. He was tapping his foot nervously. I know it's been a turbulent week, Derek announced, flashing his teeth. Transitions are always hard. But sometimes you have to trim the dead wood to let the new growth flourish. Dead wood, that was me. The woman who built the forest he was standing in. Ethan here has already identified massive inefficiencies in the legacy code, Derek continued. We're streamlining the encryption protocols. By Monday, we'll be running 40% faster. To Ethan, the room mumbled. They drank. So, Ethan, Sarah, my senior analyst, asked, swirling her wine, is the system back up? My terminal is still showing a no connection error. Oh yeah, Ethan stammered. It's booting. Big server takes time to. Spin up the platters, spin up the platters. We moved to solid-state arrays 5 years ago. There are no platters, Sarah knew that. I saw her eyes narrow. She exchanged a look with the sysadmin. The wolves were starting to smell blood. Derek clapped his hands. Don't worry about the tech mumbo-jumbo, we'll handle it. Drink up. Inside the war room, the server finally completed its reboot cycle. I switched my view to the internal camera. The lights on the rack flickered on. Amber, 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 they should be green. Ethan slipped away from the party and went back inside. Derek followed him, closing the door. Why is it orange? Derek asked, his voice losing its celebratory timbre. It's just a warning light, Ethan said, typing frantically. It says, volume mount failed, decryption key missing. Well, put the key in, Derek snapped. I can't, the prompt isn't accepting the password. It says user unauthorized. Lockout active. Try the admin override. I did. It's locking me out for 60 minutes after every failed attempt. Derek ran a hand through his hair. Messing up the gel? Okay, call the vendor, call the support line. I can't, Ethan whispered. The support contract ID? It was under Alina's name. When you revoked her access, the vendor portal locked us out too. Silence, pure, beautiful silence. What do you mean locked out? Derek's voice rose to a shriek. We pay them millions. Yeah, but the authentication is tied to the lead cryptographer's biometric token. You took her token, I have it right here. Derek pulled my fob out of his pocket. No, not the fob, her biometrics, her fingerprint, her retina scan. The system needs her to authorize the transfer of ownership. Derek stared at the blinking amber lights. The realization was hitting him. He hadn't just fired an employee, he had thrown away the only key to $1 billion safe. Call her, Derek said. What? Call Alina. Tell her. Tell her there's a glitch. Tell her we need her to come in for an exit interview. Final sign-off. Just get her in the building. I watched Derek pull out his phone. He dialed my number. I sat in my living room watching my phone vibrate on the coffee table. Caller Derek work. I took a sip of my wine, a nice Pinot Noir, much better than the swill they were drinking. I let it ring. Ring, ring, ring. She's not picking up, Derek growled. He sent a text. Hey, Alina, hope you're well. Just realized we forgot some paperwork for your severance. You pop by around 5? We want to make sure you get paid ASAP. The smiley face, the audacity of the smiley face. I didn't reply. Then the lights on the server rack turned from amber to red. A steady pulsing red. What's that? Derek asked. Ethan swallowed hard. That? I think that's the data purge warning. If we don't authenticate in 12 hours, it wipes the drives. Stop it. Unplug it. If I unplug it now. Battery backup kicks in and accelerates the wipe. It's a tamper-proof mechanism. Derek slumped into my chair. The party outside was still going, muted laughter filtering through the glass. But in the war room, the party was definitely over. We need her, Derek whispered. We need her back. She's not coming back, Derek, I said to the screen. Not for you, because I knew who was coming instead, and they weren't bringing severance paperwork. The next morning, the office parking lot looked different. The usual commuter cars were there, Sarah's Honda, the sysadmin's beat-up Jetta, but right in front of the main entrance in the spot reserved for Visitor of the Month sat a black Chevrolet Suburban. Tinted windows, government plates, no bumper stickers. It was 7:45 a.m. I wasn't there, obviously. I was watching the external feeds. Derek arrived at 8:00 a.m. He looked like he hadn't slept. His fleece was wrinkled. He walked past the SUV, paused, looked at it nervously, and then hurried inside. He probably hoped it was just a routine inspector or maybe someone from corporate. He didn't know that corporate doesn't drive armored subs with satellite antennas on the roof. Inside the war room, Ethan was asleep on the floor. He had clearly pulled an all-nighter trying to brute force my encryption. Empty energy drink cans littered my desk. The server rack was still pulsing red, a slow, rhythmic heartbeat of impending doom. Derek kicked Ethan's shoe. Get up, who's the car outside? Ethan groaned, wiping drool from his face. What car? The Fed Mobile out front. Did you call someone? No, I told you I can't even get outgoing email to work. There was a knock on the glass door of the war room. Not a polite knock, a police knock. Hard, authoritative rap. Derek jumped. He smoothed his hair and opened the door. Standing there wasn't the police, it was worse. It was a woman in a gray suit holding a clipboard. She looked like a librarian who kills people for fun. Derek Vance, she asked. Her voice was dry as dust. Yes, who are you? I'm Special Agent Miller, Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency. We're conducting a spot audit on your facility's clearance logs. We received a notification of irregular activity. Derek's face went pale. Irregular? No, just routine maintenance. Upgrades, Agent Miller repeated. She didn't write anything down, she just stared at him. Is that why your main encryption node is offline, and why we've lost telemetry on the vault? It's a temporary glitch. My team is handling it. Derek gestured to Ethan, who looked like a raccoon caught in a trash can. I see, and where is the lead cryptographer, the registered prime admin? Alina redacted. She's no longer with the company, Derek said. We let her go. Clearance issues. Agent Miller's eyebrows went up, just a fraction of an inch. Clearance issues. Interesting. Our records show her clearance is active and exemplary. In fact, she's the only one certified to operate this node. Well, there was an administrative lapse, Derek stammered, recycling his lie. We're sorting it out. Ethan here is taking over. Agent Miller looked at Ethan. She looked at his hoodie. She looked at the energy drinks. She looked at the red light on the server. I'm going to need to see your access logs, she said, and I'm going to need you to step away from the terminal. Now wait a minute, Derek tried to bluster. This is a private company. You can't just Mr. Vance, she cut him off. You are a federal contractor operating a classified vault. You are not a private company. You are a tenant. And right now, it looks like you've broken the lease. She motioned to two men who had quietly entered behind her. They weren't wearing suits. They were wearing tech ops gear. They moved past Derek like he was a ghost and started plugging laptops into the server ports. Derek pulled out his phone again. He ducked into the hallway. My phone rang. Caller Derek work, I let it go to voicemail. He texted, Alina, pick up. The feds are here. Tell them you quit. Tell them IT was voluntary. I can fix this. I'll double your salary. I laughed. Double my salary? He was going to be lucky if he didn't end up paying legal fees for the next decade. I typed a reply, finally breaking my silence. Alina, my clearance is expired, remember? I can't talk to you. It would be a security violation. I saw him read it on the camera. He stopped walking. He stared at the phone. He looked up at the camera in the hallway, realizing for the first time that I wasn't just gone. I was watching. The silence protocol was over. The noise was about to begin. My own phone rang again. This time it wasn't Derek. It was a blocked number. This is Alina, I answered. Alina, this is Director Hastings, a deep voice said. We have boots on the ground at Sector 7. The situation is messy. They've triggered a level 4 lockout. I know, I said. I'm watching the logs. Can you fix it if I have physical access? Yes. But I've been trespassed from the property director. Not anymore. Hastings said, I'm sending a car for you. Be ready in 10 minutes. We're going to need the architect to dismantle the bomb. Understood. I hung up. I went to my closet. I put on my best blazer, the dark blue one that makes me look like a shark. I grabbed my bag. I grabbed the chapstick drive. It was time to go back to work. The car Director Hastings sent wasn't a sleek black SUV. It was a military police cruiser. Subtle. Pulled up to the office building at 9:15 a.m. The lobby was chaos. People were whispering, pointing at the government vehicles. When I stepped out of the cruiser, flanked by two MPs in full uniform, the whispers stopped. I walked to the entrance. The automatic doors slid open. The air conditioning hit me that familiar, sterile chill. But this time I wasn't shivering. Old man Miller was at the security desk. His eyes went wide. Alina, what the? Morning, Miller. I said, not breaking stride. Just here to fix a leak. We marched past the turnstiles. The MPs didn't swipe badges, they just walked through. The authority they carried was a physical weight in the room. We reached the elevator. I pressed the button for the 4th floor. The ride up was silent. The MPs were stone-faced. I checked my reflection in the polished metal doors. I looked calm. Inside, I was vibrating with a cold, sharp energy. This was the moment every wronged expert dreams of. The I told you so tour. The doors opened. The hallway outside the war room was crowded. Agent Miller, the librarian assassin, was there, talking to a very sweaty Derek. Ethan was sitting on a bench, head in his hands. The CEO, a man named Mr. Henderson who usually only showed up for quarterly bonuses, was pacing back and forth, shouting into a phone. I don't care whose fault it is. Just get the system online. We're losing data, Henderson yelled. Derek saw me first, his eyes bugged out. Alina, thank God. Look, tell them this is just a misunderstanding. You can unlock it, right? I didn't answer him. I walked straight up to Agent Miller. Agent, I said, I'm Alina, lead cryptographer. Agent Miller nodded. Director Hastings briefed me. The system is in full lockdown. The current admins, she gestured vaguely at Derek and Ethan, tempted a hard reboot during a checksum flush. Amateurs, I said loud enough for the room to hear. Alina, Derek cut in, trying to regain control. You need to log in. Now we can discuss your rehiring package later. Just fix this. I turned to him slowly. I can't, Derek. My clearance is expired. Remember, you put it in writing. Stop playing games. Derek screamed. The company is on the line. Mr. Vance, one of the MPs, stepped forward. Step back. Mr. Henderson. The CEO froze. He looked at me, then at Derek. What is she talking about? What clearance expired? He fired me yesterday, I said to the CEO. Claimed my federal clearance was revoked. He forged a document to do it. Then he handed the keys to National Defense Secrets to a guy whose password was probably password 123. Henderson turned on Derek. You forged a revocation? Derek, is that true? It was. It was a strategy. Derek pleaded we needed to cut costs. She was too expensive. Ethan said he could do it for half the price. And look what you got for your discount, I said, pointing at the war room door. The red light was pulsing faster now. Critical failure imminent. Agent Miller checked her watch. Miss Alina, the purge cycle hits the terminal phase in 4 minutes. If you can stop it, do it now. Otherwise, we are seizing all physical assets and arresting everyone in this hallway. Arresting? Derek squeaked. Criminal negligence. Mishandling of classified data. Fraud. Agent Miller listed them off like grocery items. I can stop it, I said. I walked toward the war room. The sea of people parted. I felt like Moses if Moses was a middle-aged woman in comfortable heels. I entered the room. The heat was intense. The fans were running at maximum RPM. The screens were filled with cascading red text. Warning, integrity failure. Deletion imminent. I sat in my chair. It still smelled like Ethan's cheap cologne. I'd have to burn it later. I pulled the chapstick drive from my pocket. What is that? Ethan asked from the doorway. This, I said, plugging it into the maintenance port, is what competence looks like. I began to type. The keyboard felt gritty. Ethan had probably been eating chips over it, but I ignored it. I accessed the command line. The system was screaming, a digital panic attack. It's rejecting all standard input. Access denied. Lockdown in effect. I didn't use the standard login. I used the handshake protocol I had stored on the drive. Command, initiate override auth source, USB mount 01 key, 256-bit hash string. The screen paused. The red text stopped scrolling. Analyzing key. The room behind me was dead silent. I could hear Derek breathing, short, shallow gasps. Key verified. Welcome, architect. Architect, I programmed that little welcome message myself. A bit of ego? Sure, but I earned it. Command, abort purge command, restore checksums from backup. A progress bar appeared. 0%, 10%. Is it working? Henderson whispered. Hush, I said. 20%, 50%. The angry red pulsing of the server rack slowed. The lights flickered, turned amber, and then finally a solid, steady green. The fans spun down to a hum. System restored. Integrity 100%. I exhaled. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath. I pulled the drive out and stood up. It's done, I said. The vault is secure, no data loss. Agent Miller stepped forward and checked the screen. She nodded. Good work. We'll need to do a full audit to ensure no backdoors were left by the unauthorized users. She turned to Derek. Mr. Vance, she said, we need to discuss the document you presented to this employee. It was just a memo, Derek said, backing away. Internal HR stuff. Alina, Agent Miller said. Do you have the letter? I kept a copy, I said. I pulled the crumbled paper from my bag, the one he slid across the table yesterday. Miller took it. She read it. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes got colder. This document attempts to mimic a Department of Defense directive. It cites a non-existent statute. It falsely claims a revocation of a federal clearance. She looked at the CEO. Mr. Henderson, are you aware that forging federal security documents is a felony carrying a mandatory minimum sentence? Henderson looked like he was about to vomit. I had no idea. Derek told me she was being let go for performance issues. He never mentioned a clearance revocation. He lied to you, I said simply. He lied to get his friend hired, and he risked the entire company to do it. Derek was cornered. He looked at Ethan for support, but Ethan was busy trying to melt into the drywall. It was a business decision. Derek yelled, his voice cracking. She was unmanageable. She didn't fit the culture. The culture of what? I asked. Incompetence? You're right, Derek. I don't fit that culture. Agent Miller signaled the MPs. Derek Vance, I'm detaining you for questioning regarding the mishandling of classified material and fraud against the United States government. You can't arrest me. I'm a manager. Not anymore, Henderson barked. You're fired, Derek, effective immediately. And you, he pointed at Ethan. Get out. Don't touch a computer, don't touch a phone. Just get out. The MPs moved in. They didn't cuff Derek, but they flanked him, grabbing his arms. They marched him toward the elevators. He was still shouting about agile workflows and cost savings as the doors closed. The lobby was silent again. Henderson wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. He looked at me. Alina, we need you. Please name your price. We can't run this without you. I looked at the server rack, my baby. It was humming happily again. I'm not coming back to work for you, Mr. Henderson, I said. Double salary, triple stock options. It's not about the money, I said. Let a man like that tear apart my work. You didn't check. You didn't ask. You just signed the paper. Then what will you do? Agent Miller stepped in. Actually, Mr. Henderson, the department is seizing control of this node. We're moving the contract and the personnel. She looked at me. Director Hastings would like to offer you a position, direct hire. No contractors, no middle managers. You answer to the agency. I smiled. I think I'd like that. The transition was swift. By noon, federal teams were swarming the building, boxing up hard drives and shredding paper files. The company, my former company, was effectively gutted. Without the defense contract, they were just another tech firm with too much office space and bad management. Their stock was already plummeting. Apparently, news of an FBI raid tends to spook investors. I packed up my personal items from the war room. Framed photo of my dog, who has better clearance discipline than Derek, my favorite mug, and my cactus. Ethan was waiting by the elevator with a cardboard box. He looked like a kicked puppy. I didn't know, he mumbled as I walked past. Derek said it would be easy. He said it was just maintenance. I stopped. Encryption isn't maintenance, Ethan. It's language. If you don't speak it, don't try to shout over it. I pressed the button. I didn't wish him luck. Be fine. He'd probably land a job at some app startup ruining user privacy for a living. That's where guys like him belong. Outside, the air smelled sweet. Agent Miller was waiting by the sedan. We have the logs from your USB drive, she said. They confirm everything. Derek's attempts to bypass protocol, the authorized access by Ethan, the negligence, and the revocation letter, evidence in the fraud case. He's looking at significant time, and a permanent ban from any government contracting. He'll be lucky if he can get a job managing a shift at a pretzel stand. I nodded. It was enough. Here, I said, handing her the chapstick drive. This is the restored encryption keychain, and the source code for the override protocol. I kept it safe. She took it, turning the little tube over in her hand. You kept the nuclear codes on a lip balm stick. Nobody checks the lip balm, I said. Security through obscurity. She actually smiled. A real smile this time. Welcome to the team, Alina. I got into the car. As we drove away, I looked back at the office building one last time. It looked small, insignificant, a glass box full of people pretending to be important. I pulled out my phone. I had one notification left, a LinkedIn request from Derek Vance. Sent 2 days ago. Derek Vance wants to add you to his professional network. I hit block. Then I opened the Reddit app. I saw the upvotes climbing on my post. I saw the comments, people cheering for the crypto queen, people roasting Derek, people asking for updates. You guys want an update? I whispered. We won. I typed out the final edit to my post. Update, the system is safe. The manager is in custody, and I just got a promotion. Moral of the story, you can lie to HR, you can lie to your boss, but you can never, ever lie to the code, because the code always remembers. I locked my phone. The car merged onto the highway, heading toward DC, toward the real work. My clearance didn't expire, it just got upgraded. Funny how some people think a title means power, but forget that real authority isn't something you can fake or hand to a friend. Alina never raised her voice, never made a scene. She just let the system she built speak for itself. And when it did, it asked one simple question. Where is she? That's the thing about quiet professionals, you don't notice them until everything breaks without them. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed that one, I've got more coming. See you in the next story.